Hello everyone, week 3, part 3. In this part of week 3 presentation, we will talk about the topic of exceptions and mainly for error handling. So we will discuss exceptions, how to throw exceptions and handle exceptions using the try-catch block. To define exception, an exception is an issue or a problem that happens during the execution of a program, and it indicates that something unexpected has occurred or been detected. It is a response to an exceptional circumstance that arises while a program is running. For example, divide by zero. If you try to divide by zero in your program is going to throw an exception. Exception allows you to control the program to deal with the problem. It can be simple or complex as program design requires. Some of the other terminologies of exceptions are you have an exception, which is an object or value that signals an error. Throw an exception, which sends a signal that an error has occurred. Catch or handle an exception, it processes the exception and interpret the signal so it can tell the program to keep going or throw back an error to the user or to the program designer to fix the problem and go back and test and handle the exception based on the data that was inputted or based on what caused the exception. For example, as we said, divide by zero. Some exception keywords that you should be familiar with are throw, try, and catch. Throw. Throw is followed by an argument is used to throw an exception. Try is followed by a block and is used to invoke code that throws an exception. Catch is also followed by a block and is used to detect and process exceptions throw and preceding try block. So the try invokes the code that throws the exception, and throw is it throws the exception, and then catch is process and detect the exception. So the catch, it takes a parameter that matches the type thrown. For example, if a block of code raises an exception, there will be a method that will catch the exception using a combination of the try and catch keywords. A try-catch block is placed around the code that could generate an exception. This code is called protected code. And the syntax is shown on this slide 2. You can have multiple catch statements with one try in case your try block raises more than one exceptions in different situations. Other notes to keep in mind about exceptions that they are predefined functions such as new may throw exceptions. The value that is thrown does not need to be used in catch block. In this case, no name is needed in catch parameter definition. And catch block parameter definition does not or does need the type of exception being caught. The flow of control of exceptions is you have a function that throws an exception is called from within a try block. If the function throws an exception, the function terminates and the try block is immediately exited. A catch block to process the exception is searched for in the source code immediately following the try block. If a catch block is found that matches the exception thrown, it is executed. If no catch block that matches the exception is found, the program terminates. This is an example of a function that throws an exception. This is a try block call that calls the function. So what happened here is try block is entered, total functions or total days function is called. If first parameter is between 0 and 7, the total number of days is returned and catch block is skipped over, so no exception is thrown. If exception is thrown, function and try block are exited. Catch blocks are scanned for first one that matches the data type of the thrown exception, and then catch block executes. One and an exception will not be caught. An exception will not be caught if it is thrown from outside of a try block, if there is no catch block that matches the data type of the thrown exception, and if an exception is not caught if the program will terminate. Exception class. What is an exception class? An exception class can be defined in a class and thrown as an exception by a member function. An exception class may have no members, used only to signal an error. Members pass error data to catch block. A class can have more than one exception class. So what can happen after catch block? Once an exception is thrown, the program cannot return to throw point. The function executing throw terminates and does not return. Other calling functions in the try block terminates, and that will be resulting in unwinding the stack. If objects were created in the try block and an exception is thrown, they are destroyed.